And welcome back to this episode of Immersed TV. It's Drew with you, and joining me on the show today, I'm very excited to have her, is Holly, our social media guru for the APP World Tour. And we're going to be taking a look at a couple of other things as we move forward into the show, one of which is someone who is extremely new to the sport, who's taking on a crazy journey. And when Holly, when you told me about this, I think this is absolutely incredible. We're talking about Jordan Wylie. Tell us about it.
So Jordan Wylie is from Lancashire, which is actually coincidentally where I'm from. And he is attempting to make the world record of being the first person ever to stand up paddleboard around Great Britain. One of the great things about this is that he was only paddleboarding for about 3 months before he started this crazy challenge. And he has been doing the world record attempt to raise money to build a school in the Horn of Africa in aid of Frontline children. And he's been trying to raise £100,000 by doing this challenge. So a pretty crazy challenge. People have attempted it before, but no one has been successful yet.
Well, Holly, let's take a look at the video with Jordan Wylie right now and see how it's going.
Okay, so I'm with Jordan Wylie, who is making a world record attempt of being the first person to stand up paddle around Great Britain. So tell me about your new mission.
Yeah, so it's firstly, thank you for having me, but 120 days in, over 2,000 kilometres now, and experiencing the brutal Scottish weather. It's been an incredible adventure and an incredible journey, from setting off on the 26th of July down in Essex, coming down the south coast, across the Irish Sea, through Ireland, Northern Ireland, then back into Scotland. It's been amazing, but been as tough as you can imagine as well. And if I'm honest, I didn't think I'd still be paddling deep into the winter. But one thing I've learned on this is it doesn't matter how fast I want to paddle or I want to go. It's Mother Nature that decides what I can do and when I can do it. But no, really, it's been a great adventure, as tough as it's been.
And you said when you started, when are you hoping to finish?
I guess the $1 million question that I've asked every day. I'm hoping to finish as quick as possible and as soon as possible. But when I started, I thought 100 days. And I think if I could paddle consecutively every day, 100 days would be quite realistic. But the reality is, as you will know better than me, if the wind is against you, if the tide is against you, there's just no point, because you only go one way, and that's backwards. Yeah, as you say, nobody's done it before. It's been attempted a few times. And a lot of people told me that I didn't have the experience. I came into this quite a almost brand new paddler. I'd been paddling about 3 months. And certainly not in the conditions that I'm facing now. It had been on the local rivers and on the local lakes and things. But, I'm a big believer that if you're committed to something and you're prepared to work for it, and you've got the patience, the determination, you can achieve anything you want in this world. And, I'm determined to get round as long as it takes. It's for a really important cause. We're trying to raise money for a charity called Frontline Children to build a school on the Horn of Africa for children affected by war and conflict. So as a former soldier, really important to me.
And how do you physically prepare for such an expedition?
I think, for me, it was, I went on a training course actually with an organisation called Water Skills Academy, and that was more about teaching me to paddle more efficiently. I was paddling, but I had all the sort of common mistakes and errors that most sort of brand new paddlers had. I've always been quite physically fit. I'm an adventurer. I like to push the boundaries, whether it's running, whether it's climbing, cycling or swimming or whatever it might be. So I try to keep myself relatively fit, but I always differentiate. I'm an adventurer, not an athlete, so I perhaps don't have the best diet. I don't live and breathe the gym or anything like that. I'm quite an ordinary person in that respect. I live a very normal life, and I love going to the pub when they're open as much as the next person. For me, I think mindset and determination and focus and psychology is a big factor, especially on this where it's so enduring. When we look at things like sports psychology, typically they would be very short, sharp impact, one-off events, whether it be a football match or a sprint or whatever the environment is. Whereas adventure is a lot more enduring. The conditions are not fixed. The circumstances, the environment is changing all the time. There are a lot of unknown factors. So I think mindset is a massive factor in taking on an expedition of this nature, because believe me, when I was getting in the water last night at, whatever it is, 11, 12 at night, and it's freezing cold, you're putting on cold kit, it's not nice, it's not pleasant, you don't see anybody, you're in the complete darkness, there's no moonlight. they're the days when you really need to, get yourself fired up for getting in the water, because it'd be very easy just to say, do you know what, I've had enough, and throw in the towel, because there's nobody around here, and there's been nobody around for hundreds of kilometers now. So I think discipline is a really important factor when it comes to success. I think, I often say that you won't be motivated every day, but you can be disciplined every day, and it's about doing what you need to do when you need to do it, I think, and that's a big part of this expedition, I think.
So how did you choose your equipment?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I trialed a lot of different bits of equipment, and I'm certainly not proclaiming to be an expert in anything, and I've done a lot of paddling in the last 4 months, but I'm far from being an expert. I'm surviving most days. But for me, I spoke to a lot of industry professionals. I spoke to people, because initially I was actually going to use an inflatable board, and again, we did some testing, and people said, it's potentially a lot slower. I was using a sort of two and 3 piece paddle as well, which was my own, and we did some testing on using a 1 piece versus a 2 piece, and again, the sort of power surge that you get through it is significantly different. You lose a lot of power at the joints, as again, you guys will know better than me, but I trialed lots of boards, and I came across SIC, and I came across Blackfish paddles, and to be honest, again, for me, I love working with good people who have the same values and the same vision. And the board and the paddle that I use have been incredible. They've been amazing, and I've been very privileged to work with some of the leading companies in the sort of paddleboard sector. But to me, it's about working with good people, and I've had great relationships with all the companies I've worked with, and for me, that's as important as the kit in itself. I like good people with the same vision and values, and if the kit's okay, well, that's great for me. But for me, it's about people, if I'm honest.
And you've done some pretty crazy stuff before, I hear, like all your rowing. And did you run up somewhere barefoot? What did you do with that?
Yeah. So lots of weird and wonderful challenges. Yeah, we climbed climbed Kilimanjaro, the highest freestanding mountain, the highest mountain in Africa, barefoot. We've done marathons through war zones, rowing expeditions across dangerous stretches of water. But as I said earlier, it's more about the impact of the adventure. So the adventure itself is great, but it's not about what we're doing, it's about why we're doing it. I think a lot of people try and sort of home in on the what you're doing is great, or it's really, really cool, but actually the most important thing is why we're doing it, and it's to try and inspire other people, and I think that's really important. If we get to the end, amazing, we break some records, amazing, but if we can build a school and inspire a generation, that's priceless.
Yeah. And how does this challenge compare to those that you've done?
Oh, definitely the hardest by a long way. Normally you do a challenge, and take a marathon or an ultra marathon or whatever it might be, rowing, you're normally over within a day or a week or so. This has gone on for 120 days. We're in 4 months in of paddling daily, and we're only just over halfway. So we're going into a winter, and we're not even at the top of Scotland yet. Nobody knows what we're going to get from one day to the next. So from an endurance perspective, definitely the hardest thing that I've had to do, to keep yourself disciplined and motivated and keep moving forward. And the challenges along the way, whether it's with the weather, the logistics, the COVID, with injuries, the challenges are endless. So
yeah. And have you had any kind of shaky moments where you've gone out paddling where you felt like maybe you shouldn't have done, or you just felt a little bit unsafe?
Yeah, we had a really tough moment early on the north of Devon where a bit of miscommunication with some of my support team, and I ended up stuck for quite a few hours. I actually lost my paddle in the surf off North Devon, and it was complete darkness, and I was along a rock line for about 10 miles, so there was no get out on the beach for me, and I was stuck. But luckily we had our safety kit and my tracker, and my team eventually found me, but I was hanging onto my board for a couple of hours in the darkness, that was probably the most scared I've been.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really, really tough, and we took a lot of lessons from that as a team. It was miscommunication as things happened, and we moved forward as a team and got stronger as a team. But there's certainly days, even at the moment, where we go out and it's a bit sort of hit and miss. If it's dangerous, but I think because we've got a support boat, we have that assurance that there's nobody ever too far away, and we do a risk assessment every day and make sure that we've got all the right equipment, all the right kit. We do our weather route in our planning. So You know, we've not, touch wood, we've not had to call any RNLI or call in any rescues from Coast Guard agency, and long may that continue.
And stand-up paddling is always one that people say really does so much for their mental health and well-being. And what do you think stand-up paddling in particular does for your mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, paddling is one aspect of adventure and the great outdoors. I think the great outdoors, whether it's the ocean, whether it's the mountains, I think any of those things are brilliant for mental health. It's not something actually that I've talked a lot about on this expedition, but actually something that is probably one of the most powerful things for me personally that's come out of this is that I was on medication for the last 4 years, and I stopped taking them at the start of this expedition, and I've not took any medication. I was diagnosed with severe depression and chronic anxiety, and I took sertraline medication for the last 4 years, and I stopped taking it at the start of this. And you know, I've had some ups and downs, some little blips, but mostly it's been, you know, really, really positive. And I think that's an absolute reflection of being on the ocean every day, seeing, you know, nature, experiencing the waves. So absolutely, you know, blue therapy, 100%, you know, and green therapy as well. Getting in the mountains or on the water, it can only be a good thing.
And what advice would you give to someone that's like a beginner paddler?
Yeah, you know, I think enjoy it. The most important thing is to enjoy it. You know, stand-up paddleboarding is one of the most accessible sports, and I think that's why we've seen you know, an incredible growth over the last 12, 24 months, even though it's been around for many years. But the most important thing is to enjoy it. You know, you don't feel like you've got to go and do some crazy expedition like this, or that you've got to, you know, start racing people or anything like that. Because I think all those things will come naturally if you just enjoy what you're doing. And paddle in pairs as well. It's great fun, you know, go with your friends and enjoy the adventure. And it's obviously a lot safer.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit more about the charity you're raising money for.
Yeah, so the charity is called Frontline Children. It's a charity that tries to inspire hope through education. It primarily focuses on conflict countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia. And we try to help children that have lost their families, that have lost their homes, by giving the gift of education. So we build schools, we fund scholarships, we supply teaching resources, those sort of things. It's a charity that's very small, but it's also a charity that only has volunteers, has no salaried staff. So we know that all the money raised goes exactly where it should do, which is the most important thing.
Okay, well, also that's all my questions for you, Jordan. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me. Amazing.
A truly incredible, inspiring story. Unbelievable. Great job, Holly. And I'll tell you what, Jordan, phenomenal individual. So, Holly, where is Jordan now?
Well, unfortunately, the challenge has had to come to an end quite recently because to carry on would have breached COVID regulations in Scotland, which is such a shame. But so far, he had paddled 2,300 kilometers and he'd been on the water for 149 days. So he's done absolutely amazingly. And I was watching his final episode and he said, it's not what, it's why. And that's so true with this. He's managed to raise £82,000 for the charity in which he was paddling for. And it was the longest paddle anybody's ever done in open water. So even though he's not been able to complete the challenge, he's done what nobody has done before, and for such a great cause.
Unbelievable. These stories, I got the chills right now just thinking about it. Holly, great job. We're so lucky to have Holly on the team, and tell you what, we're so thankful for all of you to join us here on Immersed TV each and every day. Stay tuned. We got more coming out, more announcements. We're going to announce that Stop One of the Racing scene here probably in the next couple of weeks, and there's always information coming out, and Holly will get it to you first, I'm sure. But ladies and gentlemen, end of January, we have some great news for you regarding the regional qualifiers and the new locations for the fast track and the ride of the season. A very, very popular inaugural event we kicked off this year under the COVID restrictions. We'll talk about more of that coming up here on Immersed TV. Thanks for joining us. It's Immersed TV. See you next time.